direct intervention from an individual such as the LVR or DVOP. And we're finding that those individuals that get that direct intervention from those, they seem to fare better in the employment market. In other words, basically 80% of our veterans, because we're coming from a military background and we're the best trained in the world. Most of them in Illinois, the veterans that are leaving the military, have nearly 14 years of education. So the majority of them, we kind of just direct them in the right direction and they can get those jobs on their own. That 20% that are disabled and have barriers, those are the ones that really need the help of the vet reps, especially disabled veterans outreach specialists.
The VETS program and the DVOPs and the leavers, well, let's start with the DVOP, the Disabled Veteran Outreach Program Specialist. Does he deal with the veteran or does he deal with the employers primarily?
Both. He deals with that veteran, especially one that is disabled and with barriers to employment. And once they overcome those barriers and get ready for employment, he also calls on employers doing marketing that veteran, the individual veteran, or a group of veterans with disabled veterans that he markets to employers in the area for employment for those.
Now, one of the ways that we take advantage of a program for the U.S. Department of Labor is the Stand Down grant. Our Stand Down has been partially funded by grants from the U.S. Department of Labor, and very appreciative of that. It's not easy to put on a stand down. With the help of the U.S. Department of Labor, it's been much easier. Along with the grant money, we have the DVOPs and the leavers from 3 counties that come to the stand down. And when you come to the stand down, you certainly need to hook up with them and see how they might be able to help you or how you might be able to help them do their job. Another thing that the Department of Labor does, I believe, is take care of these guys that, because they're veterans, they lose their job. Individuals that are called to active duty, reservists, employers know they're reservists when they hire them. They know they're going to be drilling. They know there's a possibility they might be called to active duty and be deployed. They should have that job back because it's a nice thing to do, or is it the law?
It's the law, and it's always been the law. But here recently, since 9/11 with the call up the Guard and Reserve, and now the Guard and Reserve, about over 50% of the active military belongs to the Guard and Reserve. So now this is kind of really have become a major thrust of our efforts here, because we have so many of our young men and women that are being called up from the Guard and Reserve. In fact, in Illinois, we've had 4,700 to be called up already, and between now and perhaps as early as May, we expect 3,000 more to be activated. So that becomes a real priority to protect those individuals' jobs and so forth when they come back. And for the most part, employers want to do the right thing. And I think it's up on us, the U.S. Department of Labor and all of us, to make sure that we promote this with employers, make sure the employers are aware. And what we're doing now, we're contacting the Chamber of Commerce, the manufacturing agencies, and all those, the SHRMs, all of those where employers frequent, to try to get that message out, to make them aware of their rights, their responsibilities under this law. And so far, for the most part, I believe it is starting to work. If you look, a few years ago, our caseload was probably about 150 a year in Illinois. And last year was down to about 60. So I think we're getting the word out to employers. And in this Illinois office, many Illinois employers are calling us now saying, I got a young man or a lady that's getting ready to be activated. What do I do? What should I do when they come back? how should I take care of them while they're gone? And many employers are making up the difference in those salaries because, as we're aware, if a person leaves here and they're making $60,000 a year and they may go in the military and they're making 30, that family suffers. So many of our employers are picking up the ball and saying, and realizing how important that military service is and saying, we'll make the difference. We'll take care of your family while you're gone. And I'm hoping that as these employers are doing it and we're getting the word out, many other employers will start to do that also.
To what extent does the U.S. Department of Labor get involved if an employer doesn't welcome that employee back?
Okay. What we do is our responsibility is to make sure that the federal mandates are carried out and the law. And basically, the law states that if an individual leaves his place of employment to go into the military, that he or she should be entitled to that job when they come back, and all the seniority rights that come with that job when they come back. In fact, what we try to do is make sure that that individual is kept as whole as possible. When they come back, as much as possible, it should be like they never left the job.
So the U.S. Department of Labor not only protects the veterans' rights, but the employer as well?
Yes, we do. As I said, we want to make sure that the mandates of the law are carried out. We don't ask the employer to do anything that he's not bound to do by the law. And if there are sometimes, if there are veterans or so forth that are asking for something that they're not entitled to, we make sure that we stick with the law and make sure that only entitlements are given from both sides, the employer and the veteran.
If a veteran returns from Iraq or Afghanistan or anywhere he might be deployed, or she might be deployed, and feels that there is a problem with getting her job back, or his job back, what are the steps that they would go through to gain some assistance?
Okay. The first step, they would contact my office in Illinois or around the country on an office like mine. And that's the process. We have investigators that would take down their statements or their testimony and so forth and investigate their claim. And one other way that, several ways that we are making the veteran aware of us. We also, especially Guard and Reserve, because when they get out, unlike the military, it's kind of like the active military, the Guard and Reserve is kind of a disconnect. Because if you take in Illinois here, other than Great Lakes or Scott, they're not close to any major military establishment. So what we're doing is that we go to those sites, the Guard and Reserves, to make sure that they are aware of all their rights, and we do this in two ways. We know when all the deployments, so we go as they're being deployed and advise them of their rights before they leave and what they should do when they come back. And we not only do that, but when they come back, 45 days after they get back into their duty station or discharged from the active military, we go right to their sites, the Guard centers, and meet them there and again make them aware of their reemployment rights and all the entitlements that they are due as service members.
I certainly wish there was something like that for active duty being discharged that was the same all over the country.
Mm-hmm.
We will have this streaming live, or not streaming live, but streaming off of StardustRadio.com, which will be viewed in Iraq and Afghanistan and around the world. Right now we're seeing the local number for Illinois for them to call, but this is throughout the country. The United States Department of Labor, no matter where they were activated from, no matter where they go back for employment, how would they contact them?